Hi everyone, welcome to my bariatric journey. I'm Miranda. This is episode 5 billion. I don't even know anymore. I think we're somewhere in the late teens. So this is a channel where we do recipes for people who have recently had bariatric surgery, or for families of people who've recently had bariatric surgery. So it's to help you feed not only yourself after bariatric surgery, but also your family, so you don't have to make multiple dishes at one time. So tonight's recipe is actually going to be one I remember from when I was a kid. I made my mom go through her recipes and find this one, and it's literally off of the Campbell's Soup jar. So they still have this, I'm sure, but you buy the condensed Campbell's Soup, and on the peel it and at the back, sometimes there was a recipe, and one of them was for what they called curry chicken divine, or Divan. I'm not really sure how you're supposed to pronounce it, but I think it was divine, and it was delicious, and I used to love it when I was a kid. So that's what I'm going to make today, but I'm changing it a little bit. I'm making it bariatric friendly, so instead of things like sour cream, we're using the skyr yogurt. Instead of things like whole milk, we're using low-fat milk. And instead of the cans of cream of mushroom soup, I'm actually going to make a condensed cream of mushroom soup from scratch. So the cream of mushroom soup from scratch that I'm making, it is supposed to be a condensed version, and I got it out of a bariatric cookbook I found. And then I've changed it a little bit, and most of the recipes actually come from drlib.info, which is like a bariatric friendly page on the internet that has lots of bariatric friendly recipes. So that's where I've gotten this recipe from. So that's just the soup itself. So first we're going to make the condensed soup, which only takes a couple of minutes. And then we're going to go ahead and mix it all together with the other ingredients for this casserole that's called Curry Chicken Divine. So I hope everyone really loves this recipe. Again, this is going with the theme of the, your favorite home cooked, what's the word I'm looking for, guys? Comfort foods. Thank you. Comfort foods. My husband is like at the back of the room, like, comfort food. Anyway, so this falls under comfort food, at least for me. It definitely falls under comfort food. So we're going to be making curry chicken divine. So to start this off, we are starting with the condensed cream mushroom soup. So this condensed cream mushroom soup includes 1 teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil, which I am using a fat-free olive oil spray substitute that I'm using 1 teaspoon of that. 4 ounces of mushrooms. It is going to use some flour to thicken it, because it does need to be a thicker density. So I have 2 tablespoons of flour here. It does call for whole wheat flour. Then a cup of chicken or vegetable broth. I had vegetable broth handy, so that's what I'm using. A cup of low-fat milk, some freshly ground black pepper I have here, and a medium skillet, which is here. So we're going to go ahead and brown up these mushrooms first in our 1 teaspoon of olive oil. We're going to saute them till tender, about 5 minutes. Then we're going to do the rest in a saucepan. So let's get started. All right, everyone, so that's done. As you can see, these are still sizzling here. So that's my 4 ounces of mushrooms all cooked up. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the next part, which is in a medium saucepan. We're going to heat 3 teaspoons of olive oil. So again, I'm using the fat-free stuff I have. I'm going to get 3 teaspoons of olive oil in this pan. I'm supposed to heat this up with the flour mixture and gradually add the flour and blend it until smooth. So that's making a roux so that we can make the soup nice and thick. So I'm doing 3 teaspoons, not tablespoons, teaspoons of olive oil. And I'm going to slowly blend it with this and heat it until thick. Then we're going to add the broth and milk until the mixture is nice and smooth to make our base for our cream soup. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done that. That only takes about a minute to blend that until the mixture is smooth. Now I'm supposed to slowly add the broth and the milk, whisking constantly until the entire thing is smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and start that and add the milk first. So there's the milk. At this point, I'm going to add my secret ingredient, which is always my secret ingredient, which is a 1/4 cup of powdered milk. So this is fat-free powdered milk. I'm gonna go ahead and add that. That adds a little bit more creaminess to most things, I find, when I use it, as well as just adding more protein. So, you know, the more protein you need, the more protein you can add, and that's a nice, easy add. Okay, and we'll just keep whisking and mix in the vegetable stock as well. So this is just a low sodium vegetable stock, a no-name brand that I got at the store. There's nothing special about it. I didn't make it myself. I mean, I could have, but I didn't. But it's the low sodium one, which is always the one I go for, fat-free low sodium. But as you can see, there is nary a lump in there. Get that to stop stirring. No lumps are coming up to the top. Woo, love it. Okay. So now we need to add the mushrooms into this mixture, and we're going to bring it to a boil over medium-high heat. So I'm going to go and do that off camera again, but that's what's going to give it the mushroom flavor. So I've added the mushroom. We're going to go ahead and bring it to a boil off camera. And it says allow it to boil at a low simmer for 5 minutes after boiling until it's a nice thick consistency. So it's going to come up to a boil. Then we're going to leave it on a low simmer for 5 minutes. And then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. I'll be back. Okay, so that is actually still simmering on the stove over there. We're going to throw a picture in the before this, so you will have already seen what it looks like done. We're going to go ahead and start with the chicken at the same time, just because that makes it a little bit faster. Now, this curry chicken recipe, as I said, it came off the Campbell's Soup container, like the actual can on the label. So any changes I kind of have to make on the fly. It calls for margarine, and it calls for 2 tablespoons of margarine to cook this chicken in. So we're going to brown this chicken, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do 2 teaspoons of the olive oil. So again, this is the fat-free, extra virgin olive oil that you get. I get the no-name brand, honestly, but I've seen it all the time at Costco and No Frills and all the other grocery stores, so no worries about that. So I'm going to go ahead and brown this up on the stove. It should take me about 5 additional minutes. So we'll be back in a minute. Okay, so this is it after simmering for 5 minutes on low. As you can see, it's not quite as thick as your standard soup in a can. So we'll see if that, as it cools down, if it gets any thicker, which I assume it will. I'm just going to go ahead and add it to a clean, cool bowl, just to help it cool down a little bit quicker, because I want to see what it's supposed to look like if I were to, say, have put it in a jar in the cupboard for a few weeks or whatever. So there's that. We put it in a cool bowl. We're going to set that aside while we make the rest of it. All right, guys, we're back. There's my chicken all nice and browned up. And cooked most of the way through. Some of them might be a little pink in the middle, but that is okay because this is going to go in the oven for half an hour. There's really no problem with that. You just want that kind of crunchy edges to your chicken to kind of give it that texture in the casserole. So this is a casserole. It's all going into, I've already prepared a casserole dish with some spray and a liner. It's a really, really old Betty Crocker dish. It actually belonged to my mom before she gave it to me. So super seasoned, as they call it. Anyway, so we're going to go ahead and put this together. So we've cut the chicken into these chunks. The original recipe calls for strips, but I've done chunks. The original recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of margarine. I only do the 1 teaspoon of olive oil, and I am just not going to let that get in. So I'm going to leave any accumulated juices, which I know juices are flavor, and all of you real chefs out there are going to be very mad at me for that. But that has fat in it, and we're trying to avoid as much extra fat as possible. So there's the chicken. Now, I did some frozen broccoli. It calls for California mix, which, as you probably know, is broccoli, cauliflower, snow peas, and carrots. My family really only likes broccoli and carrots. The cauliflower they can always do without. So I've just done some frozen broccoli, and I just cut up some carrots, and it calls for 3 cups of that mix. So, as you can see, the broccoli was frozen. I'm just going to break it up a little bit with my hands, which I did wash, I promise. I just don't show that on camera, but I do wash my hands. any huge big chunks. I'm trying to break up a little bit. Okay, now there is some, this is called Chicken Curry Divine. So now there is some spices in here. So it's gonna go for, let me just see what the original recipe says. So 3 teaspoons of curry powder, which I have some curry powder right here. And you know, we didn't have any. So this is actually really amazing. I found a recipe online to make my own curry powder. We've never been big into curries in this house. So I've never really made any. But like I said, this is one of those comfort foods my mom used to make. So I wanted to try it. So I made my own curry powder from scratch, which was just cumin, coriander, turmeric, and red pepper flakes was really all that was required. Two of cumin and 1 of everything else. So if you're doing tablespoons, 2 tablespoons of cumin and 1 tablespoon of everything else. If you were doing, oh, and also had black pepper in it, sorry. And if you were doing it smaller batch, which I did, 1 teaspoon, 2 teaspoons of cumin, 1 teaspoon of everything else, that sort of thing. So this calls for 3 teaspoons of the curry powder, which as I said, I made myself. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in 3 teaspoons. Only made a small amount, so I should have just a little bit more than enough here. 3. There we go. 3 teaspoons of curry powder. And 1/8 of a teaspoon of garlic powder. So I gotta go get my garlic powder. Just 1/8 of a teaspoon of garlic powder. You can probably just like saute some fresh garlic for this too. But I'm just gonna go with what the recipe calls for. And we're supposed to add in the soup. So the soup has cooled a little bit, not a lot though. And we're gonna add that in. That is our condensed soup mix. Okay, so it's our condensed soup mix. We're gonna go ahead and mix that all together so that the spices are nicely combined in with everything. Oh, that's starting to smell familiar. I love that smell. Okay, my oven is now just heated to 350, which is what the casserole is going to go in at, 350. Now we're going to add the sour cream to this. So it's 1/2 cup of sour cream. Instead of sour cream, I'm using Greek yogurt. I'm actually using skyr, high protein yogurt. So it's an Icelandic style. But whatever high protein yogurt you prefer, of the plain variety, don't use vanilla in this. That might taste weird. You like mixing ice cream into your dinner, just strange. Okay, so there's that. I'm just going to mix that in nice and good. Now, the family can have this over top of rice if you'd like to serve. When you go to serve this, I'm going to have it just the way it is, and that's how we used to eat it when I was a kid. It was just the way it is. No rice, no noodles, no nothing on it, just exactly as you see it here. It's going to bake in the oven and get a little bit thicker, and it looks exactly the way it did when my mom used to make it. Okay, so let's get our pan. Now this is another thing I'm doing differently. So the original recipe calls for you to put margarine together with breadcrumbs and cheese and top it like that, like you would a homemade macaroni and cheese, which I'm sure would be delicious. But again, we're trying to omit all that extra fat. So instead of that butter and cheese mixture, I'm just going to do my low-fat cheese. I have 1/2 cup of low-fat cheese here. And it is the low-fat brand, the low-fat stuff that you buy at the grocery store. And some breadcrumbs I made from some of my own bread that I had in the house. So I'm going to be very light with this. I don't want too much breadcrumbs. It's just to give it a little bit of a crunch on top. Okay. There's the breadcrumbs. So that was about 1/2 cup, and then 1/2 cup of cheese. shredded cheese. And I shred my own cheese. I don't buy the pre-shredded stuff, but you can do that if you want. And as I said, that was low-fat cheese. And there you go. That's the whole casserole ready to go in the oven. It's 350 for 30 minutes. So we'll come back in 30 minutes and we'll see what it looks like done. All right, so I'm back after 30 minutes and here is what it looks like. You're going to notice it's very saucy. It's a very, very saucy recipe. There's lots of sauce in here, which is why I said you would normally serve it over something like rice, or rice would be your standard thing you serve over, maybe a noodle if you prefer a noodle, something like that. Today I'm going to have mine over a little bit of rice. There's 3 tablespoons of rice in there. That's all I'm going to have. And then I'm going to, this actual bowl here that I'm having is a cup when you fill it up to that line. So that allows me to know how much I can have just on this cup. As you can see, the breadcrumbs have kind of moved into become part of the mixture, and the cheese is nice and crunchy. You could have also put it under the broiler for 1 or 2 minutes. Probably would have helped the cheese crunch up a bit more, but I didn't. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and just dish myself out some of this. Now, this is a curry, so it's a little bit spicy, but that's okay. So there we go. That's what it looks like. Hopefully I get a good thumbnail out of that. I will grab a spoon and I will dig in. So I want a little bit of chicken in there in my bite. I want a little bit of broccoli in my bite. Just a little bit of everything. You can even see some of the mushrooms from the fresh mushroom soup that I made, as opposed to using the canned stuff. So it's really good. So there's one good helping in that, and we'll try it. Exactly how I remember it. A little bit spicy, but just not too much. Very chickeny, very creamy. Very, very good. Terrific over rice. Didn't get much rice in that bite, and it's fine by itself without rice. And I'm sure everyone will love it. So there you go. Chicken curry Divan that I stole from Campbell's Soup recipe and made my own. Hope everyone enjoyed it. Leave your comments down below on what your favorite comfort foods are. Give me a few ideas on sweets that you want to see on my next video. I really need the ideas. I'm just going on things that I like right now. So if we could go down and just leave some comments for me, try some new things, I will definitely try it. And I can't wait to see your comments, and I can't wait to see everyone try this recipe. If you try that recipe, go ahead and tag me on Facebook, Instagram, any of my social medias, and I will take a look at your recipe as well. And thanks so much for joining me tonight, guys. Have a great day. Bye.